Unit 5.7, the second derivative test. A, identify the relative extrema. I've already done that. I put dots on them. B, what do we know about the value of f prime of x at each extrema? We know that the tangent line it's a horizontal tangent line. So we know that f prime of x equals 0. What do we know about the value of f prime prime of x at each extrema? Well, we know that since this is concave down, then f prime prime is less than 0. And since this is concave up, we know that f prime prime is greater than 0. The second derivative test. Suppose f prime of c equals 0. Then f prime prime of c is greater than 0. Then f has a relative maximum at x equals c. If f prime prime of c is less than 0, then f has a relative maximum at x equals c. 1. Use the second derivative test to find the relative extrema of f of x equals x to the power 4 minus 2x squared. First, we have to find the first derivative, so f prime of x equals 4x cubed minus 4x. Then we have to find if this equals 0, because the second derivative test only works if the first derivative can equal 0. So in this instance, it equals 0 at x equals 0, 1, and negative 1. So if it does equal 0, we have to find the second derivative, which is f prime prime of x equals 12x squared minus 4. And now that we have the second derivative, we have to plug our critical points into the second derivative function. So we have to find f prime prime of 0, f prime prime of negative 1, and f prime prime of 1. So 0, this equals negative 4, this equals 8, and this also equals 8. Now that we have our values, we'll be able to know what is concave up and what is concave down. And if we know what is concave up and concave down, then we know what our relative maxes and mins are. So we have a relative max at x equals 0 because f prime of 0 equals 0 and f prime prime of 0 is less than 0. And we have a relative minimum at x equals positive and negative 1 because f prime of positive and negative 1 equals 0 and f prime prime of positive negative 1 is greater than 0. Number 2. Use the second derivative test to find the relative extrema of f of x equals the square root of 2 times x minus 2 times cosine of x on the interval 0 to 2 pi. First, we have to find the first derivative. So the first derivative is f prime of x equals root 2 plus 2 sine of x. Then we have to set this equal to 0. And we'll find that this is sine of x equals to root 2, negative root 2 over 2. And then x will be x equals 5 pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4. So now that this equation works, we have to find our second derivative, which is f double prime of x equals 2 cosine of x. And then we just plug in our critical points into the new equation. F double prime of 7 pi 4 equals, this is negative root 2 and this is positive root 2, so this is less than 0, this is greater than 0. So we can say that there's a relative max at x equals 5 pi over 4 because f prime of 5 pi over 4 equals 0, and f double prime of 5 pi over 4 is less than 0. Then we could say there's a relative min at x equals 7 pi over 4 because f prime of 7 pi over 4 is equal to 0, and f double prime of 7 pi over 4 is greater than 0. If there's only one critical point, if there's only one critical point, and that critical point is an extremum, max or min, then it is an absolute extremum, or max or min. So f of x equals negative x times e to the power of x over 4. First, we have to find our first derivative. So our first derivative is negative e to the power of x over 4 multiplied by 1 plus 1 over 4x. I can already see that if x equals 4, then it'll make whatever, or negative 4 that is, it'll make whatever's inside here 0, and multiplied by this, it'll make the whole function equal 0. So we have a critical point at x equals negative 4. And now we have to find our second derivative, which is f double prime of x equals negative 1/2 e to the power of x over 4 multiplied by 1 plus 1 over 8x. Oh, there's no x. I don't think so. Now we just plug in our negative 4. Now, we don't really need to solve what this actually is, because I can see that this will make a negative number, and this will be a positive number. So we multiply negative by positive, it's less than 0. That's all we really need to know. So I can already draw a conclusion at absolute maximum at x equals negative 4 because f prime of negative 4 equals 0 and f double prime of negative 4 is less than 0.